Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining 2020. So, we have got to the end of 2020. It is time for me to do my top 10. I've been doing these top 10s for the last 3 years, I think, or something to that effect. Previously, my top 10s have been the top 10 games that I've played, and I've had a rule that I've had to have played the game at least twice in order for it to qualify for my top 10. I've noticed two things. Number one, the same games are appearing in my top 10 each year. Number two, this year I have barely played many of the games more than once. And so the list of games that would be available to me to actually be doing this top 10 of, I'm not 100% convinced that we come to 10. I didn't actually look at it, but I know that I have not played a lot of these games more than once simply because of pandemic. So, having said all that, I hope everyone has had an okay 2020 and has come out this side okay and is still pushing forward and will get clear of any pandemicness in the near future. So my top 10 for this year, and I think I'll continue to do it this way, is the top 10 games out of the games that I have done reviews for this year. So it's 52 games-ish that I've done the reviews for. The top 10 out of those are the ones. So a lot of these will be from 2020 or 2019. A few of them maybe a little bit earlier than that, but let's see how it goes. I've just literally gone, these are the games I've done reviews of, so they're the games that I've chosen out of. So, without further ado, my number 10 game for 2020 is Pipeline. Pipeline is a 2019 game. It got played by myself, and I fear that it got played to a point where I was like, not me personally, but the people I was playing against were, I think I've got it now. Me personally, I got it. I played it a couple of times before it got reviewed because this is very early on in the year. But the whole idea of this game is that you're building up this little pipeline on your own space to enable you to turn different oils into higher varieties of oil. But that's not the entire game. The game itself is actually action selection. So you're choosing a thing to come in, or you're choosing to get oils and purchase oils, and there's this money changing hands thing. And what I found with this game is really tight and really I want to do this stuff, but I can't because I don't have enough money to do it. How do I get more money? Oh, I'm going to have to buy and sell some oil. Okay, that's cool. But if I buy this oil and then sell it, I've only made a little bit of money. I haven't quite made enough. It's actually a really tough game. I fear that playing it, you can get stuck into a point of just doing these things without actually doing what the game is looking for. But I really enjoyed the game at the same time. I think that you need to have players who have played it a few times to know what they're doing in order for them to do well. I remember one game I had of this, the person who won the game really didn't know what they were doing. They kind of got to the end and was like, oh, I think I did something. And that's a little bit frustrating. But once everyone gets their head around, oh, this is how to play, you'll have a better chance. So that was my number 10 game, Pipeline. My number 9 game for 2020 is Santa Monica. So, Santa Monica is a game where you're selecting cards and off a tableau, and you're putting them down in your own personal tableau, and you need to build up different elements, I guess. So, sometimes you're looking to have combinations or cards next to each other that all have the same icon. Or you're trying to get people to move to this particular area or that particular area. There's an enjoyment on the game, but it's an enjoyment that comes from the game actually not being too hard to get your head around the rules. The actual playing of it, that's tough. It's super tough because you're looking for specific cards to come into your lineup, but they're not always going to come through. You can see what cards are coming through, and there's a few different elements on that, but once you select a card, you kind of need to have an idea of what you're doing before you do it. But to get the idea of what you're doing, you need to have some cards. And there's a real push-pull on that. And I've really enjoyed the game. I've enjoyed playing it with the people I've played it with. The game itself plays relatively easily and has a few extra rules and things in there. And that's really cool. I've found that with this game in particular, the ability to play it is it's one of these games that falls into a space of a relatively simple explanation, but an intense thinky game once you get into it. And I really like that. I really appreciate that out of the games that are starting to come through, that look like this, that have that relatively easy rule set, but are really thinky. Okay, let's keep moving. My number 8 game for 2020 is Tang Garden. Once again, Tang Garden is a 2019 release, so I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball, but this is the problem being in Australia, is that games get released and then months on, they'll get released in Australia because it takes time to get down here and all that junk. Anyway, moving on. Tang Garden, my number 8 game for 2020. I really appreciate it. The whole idea of it is you're placing pieces of the garden area around the garden, and you're trying to build up the amount of stuff that you're getting in by joining it onto other areas of the same type of garden, and then try and close those areas off. But there's that element. That's not the only part of this game. There's also a whole bunch of other things that can go into your garden or around your garden, and then you're trying to get people into the garden facing the appropriate symbols. And there's a lot of different stuff going on with that that's going to get you points or potential points at the end of the game. There's a lot of cards that can be added in or taken that will build towards potential points at the end of the game. This is a funky little, I want to do this, but I could do that. You've only got a couple of choices on your turn, but the actual choices and actually thinking through everything that can happen, once again, it gets really tough and really, really intense. I really appreciate Tang Garden for what it is. It looks like it's going to be, just another tile laying game, but there's so much more to it. Okay, moving on. Number 7 game is Alma Mater. Now, Alma Mater is a 2020 game. It only just got Gamesplained in the last couple of weeks. I really appreciate it. I really like this game. I find it's a little hard to get people to the table with it, but I really appreciate it. What you're trying to do is build up a university, and so you can get students, you can get professors, but to get them you need to get combinations of books and or money, and getting those combinations of books, that's really tough. So on the first play of that one, I found that I really didn't do much. On my second play, however, I got a whole bunch more because I kind of understood what I was trying to do or the purposes of what I was trying to do. And I think that's the case with a heck of a lot of the games I'm talking about and the games I've played or coming out recently, is they are games that need to be played a couple of times for you to actually really understand what you're doing. You can't just put it on the table and assume everyone will get it, because everyone's just going to end up doing not much. This one, however, is, once again, it's a really kind of, I could do that, but I could do that. And there's so much things that you want to do, but there's not enough time and not enough space and not enough money or resource to be able to do all the stuff that you want. So you're just going to have to focus on one or two elements of it. My number 6 game for 2020 is Clinic. Now, once again, Clinic is a 2019 release. The whole idea of Clinic is that you're building up a hospital and you're trying to get the right number of doctors in for the patients and the right types of patients in for the doctors that you have. And you need to have the specific types of wing or area in your hospital. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with this. This is a heavy game. I picked up off the shelf and I bought it because I hadn't seen it before. And I actually went back into the shop and said, hey, this is a heavy game. So anyone who's asking about this one, please make sure they know it's a heavy game before they buy it. Because on the outside, it looks like it might actually not be such a heavy game, but it really is. There's a heck of a lot of thinking necessary to make the game work. Once again, it's a point salad-ish type of game where you're getting points all over the place for different things and different elements and building up on all these different elements. But the essence of it is, it's a hospital. You need to bring doctors into hospital and patients. Every single one of them comes with a car, which just fills up some space. If you're building up your hospital, you can only have one type of medicine in that building on that level. So you can go multiple levels high, which is different boards, or you can go to start another building if you've got enough space to do it. There's a lot of stuff that kind of goes into that because you need to also have this room and this room kind of connected to them and these rooms connected, and this room can't sit above another one of the same. There's so many little finicky rules with this one. But in the end, the idea of the game is get in patients and doctors that can cure those patients. I really appreciate it. I really think it's a solid game. I would like to get this one back to the table. My number 5 game for 2020 is Tekken. Once again, this is another one of those games that is, every time I've got it to the table, the people I'm playing it with have kind of gone, I personally really like it. I mean, it's my number 5 game. I really like this game, but getting it to the table is a little bit, you've got to pick your opponent. It's a heavy game again. The whole idea of it is that the sun is moving around an obelisk and that's throwing shadows. So sometimes the actions available are available with these dice. So using dice to kind of say how strong an action is. And they're already rolled. You don't have to kind of, oh, I want to do that and roll it. They're already rolled, so you're choosing off that number. But the sun will turn and that will make different colors of dice, different strengths, or good or bad, I can't remember the exact wording on it, or not usable. But the problem with this game is that there are 6 different areas that you need to get your head around to understand exactly how they work in order for the game to work. And I fear that on first play, getting your head through that whole process is really tough. And so you end up not really doing much simply because you're trying to work out how everything works. Again, a game that should be played a couple of times to see its value. But if you just play it the once, or even just half, you're probably not even going to find how this game works. I think it's a really good game. It's a worthwhile one to learn. If you like heavier games, that's a really good game, Tekken. My number 4 game for 2020, The Isle of Cats. Now, The Isle of Cats is a 2019 release, once again. So you're seeing there's a lot of 2019 releases in this list. I do apologise, but this is Australia. The Isle of Cats is one of the few games within the recent year or two that I've actually got an expansion on it. The expansion pushes the player number or the number of players available up. So I can actually sit with a few more players at the table to enable this one to move forward. So I really appreciate that, but this is one of those things where I will only get an expansion if I can see myself playing the game again. I really can see myself playing Isle of Cats again. I really like this game. The whole idea of it is that you're drafting cards, and then those cards you're using to purchase or find cats, I guess, and you bring those cats in and you're trying to fill up a boat, or at least cover different parts of a boat, different portions of the boat. At the end of the game, there'll be negative points for any portions or rooms on the boat that are not completely covered. And there's a lot of different ideas going on because there's a whole bunch of cards that give endgame points. And so knowing what your endgame points are early on and then working towards those is a really worthwhile thing. Sometimes the endgame points, for example, for not covering the middle section of the boat, if you can get from end to end of the boat covered with cats. Sometimes there's endgame points for having a certain number of this coloured cat or this colour. There's a whole bunch of different stuff going on with that. And so knowing what you're working towards early is really, really important. The only time you should really take the endgame point cards at the end of the game is if you already have them, because it's really hard to actually get to them once you get to that point in the game. I really appreciate this. I've found that this is one of those polyomino style placing different shaped cats down to enable you to fill up different portions of the boat. All of this stuff is really important and really good. There are a whole bunch of cards there. Now, the beauty of this game is once you've drafted a hand of cards, you then choose which ones to keep and which ones not to keep. Anything that you keep, you need to pay for. Anything you don't keep, you just remove it. And so you can draft a whole bunch of cards thinking, I'm not going to use that one, but I need to draft something. It might have benefited that person. I don't want it, but I don't want them to have it. So I'll draft it so neither of us get it. So just get it out of the game, get it out of the way. There's a lot of this type of thinking going on with this game. I think that's really the key to it, is there's a lot of thinking with this game and kind of just manipulation of this, that, and the other. While it appears on the table to be a child's game, it's really not. My number 3 game for 2020 is It's a Wonderful World. Once again, this was a 2019 release. It's a Wonderful World, I believe I saw an expansion for it the other day on one of the emails I got. So I will be looking out for that and I will be getting that because I really like this one. It uses a lot of the idea of drafting, so Seven Wonders style, Once you've drafted the card, you're choosing whether you're going to work towards building that card or just get the resource off that card, and then you're building or getting resources in and then enabling you to kind of work towards building those cards, and those cards will then get you more resources. I have more often than not lost this game. I've only won it once. I think it's just a matter of having the right balance of cards coming into your hand that is going to get you across the line. There's a whole bunch of different ways to score on this one, and within the cards that go down. So there are cards that will get you points for the number of this colored card that you have at the end of the game. Things like that. There's other ones that just get you some little head tokens and they give you points. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's different elements on your player board that are going to enable you to score with different types of thing. So you might have a player board that will give you a multiplier for how many female heads you have, for example. And working into that is really the element of this game. It's go, okay, this is what my board is saying, so I need to get stuff that's going to help me get that. Within that, those cards that I'm getting that are helping me with that, what else are they going to do? What else are they pushing forward? Where am I going to get my points? It's really possible to get to the end of this game without many points at all. It's also possible to get to the end of the game with a lot of points. You've really got to have your head on, this is what I'm trying to do. And the problem is that this is what I'm trying to do ends up with a whole bunch of cards that you're trying to build, but you never have the resources to be able to build them all. And so finding that manipulation is a really important thing, a really important element of the game. My number 2 game for 2020 is Ragusa. The copyright on this game says it's a 2018 game. I desperately try not to do videos of games that are more than a year old. That's just me. I end up having to do sometimes, so I do apologize. I'm pretty sure a couple of those games are going to come up next year. But this one is a really good game. I'm so glad that I did break that rule and did do the Gamesplainer for Ragusa. The whole idea of the game is that there's little hexes all over the board, and you're placing one of your markers in the corner of one of the hexes, and you're getting all 3 elements that you are next. You're then using those elements to enable you to do other stuff. And so there's 2 halves of the board. There's the farmer half and there's the city half. You need to build in the farm half to get your abilities up. So they push the number of bricks that you can create, or whatever the resource is, they push them up. And then you go and build in the city, and that uses bricks, and you've got to have enough bricks to be able to build enough times in the city. And there's this push-pull on, I want to do all this city stuff, but I've got to do the farm stuff to enable me to do the city stuff. That's really tough going. There's elements of it that are very easily ignored, but could actually play quite well into the way the game plays. And this is the kind of the push and pull of this game. Is there's an element of, on the edge you can go to where water is and you can get fish. There's one spot in the city where you can be a fish salesperson, I guess, and you put your marker there. That enables you to sell the fish, which is only like a point or so early on. But each time you put down another marker in a spot where you have a marker, you get to gain the element again. And anyone else who is also around that hex also gets to gain that element again. And this is where the game gets really interesting, because you end up doing something that actually helps the other players that have their markers there. And so you end up thinking, oh, is it worthwhile going there because that person's going to get that twice? Or is it worthwhile going over here because I'm going to get this thing 2 or 3 times? And there's a real crunch on which ones to go for. I really appreciate that. I've tried so desperately to get Ragusa back to the table, but I haven't had the right number of players sitting in front of me at the right time to actually make it happen. So I will continue to carry Ragusa around. I will continue to push to get this one happening with people. And that brings me to my number 1 game of 2020. City of the Big Shoulders. Now, City of the Big Shoulders is a game that I would not have thought my wife would like. It feels for the best of my knowledge, I think I've said this every time I've talked about the game, but for the best of my knowledge, it feels like an 18xx game. I'm not someone who's ever played an 18xx game, so I'm not 100% sure, but it feels like how people have described their 18xx game. The essence of it is you're in Chicago, you are purchasing companies, and then you're trying to build those companies up so that they're worth more, so you can either sell them or just gain a whole bunch of points. But you can purchase companies that another player has control of. And there's a lot of to and fro of what things you're able to buy and how much money you've got. And let me give you a tip: if you ever play City with Big Shoulders, it is worth using all your money to purchase companies. Use that money to purchase the companies and then work out what's happening. You have two different economies. So there's the economy in each company that you are controlling, and then there's your personal economy. Your personal economy is what's going to be used to purchase companies. Your economy within each company is what's going to enable it to grow and sell goods and get different various things. So you do need to watch those amounts of money, so you make sure you've got enough money to be able to buy the stuff that you need to be able to turn into the companies. There is so darn much going on with this game. I really appreciate it. It's not a game that my wife should like. She's not someone who has ever come at mathy type stuff well, or really appreciated it or liked it, or she doesn't think she did it very well or does it very well. I think she actually does okay, but that's beside the point. This game is maths. There's a lot of maths, because at the end of each round, when you're paying out, you kind of have to do some math on this is how much money the company's getting in. My stock is worth this, your stock is worth this, working out, pay that out, then the excess comes into the company. There's so much thinking going on with that and mathing needing to happen with that. So it's probably worthwhile having a calculator or a phone with a calculator app open next to you, just so you can go, done. There are some cards that give you some of the math, but they don't do all the math, because you will need to do it divided by once you have how much money is coming in. This is such a good game. I really, really appreciate it. I know that definition or what I've just said doesn't really sell it in its best light, but this is such a good game. I would really heavily suggest going and looking at my gameplay for this game to get a feel for how the game actually plays. So you can see what's going on with it. Once again, the copyright on this one says 2018 instead of 2019 and 2020. I feel like I'm probably going to come up on the year on from this one in a week or two's time. So I did it really early. I was kind of like, I guess I'll get that one passed. But I'm so glad I did. I have purchased the expansion once again on this one. The expansion literally adds in some more companies. There's a couple of other things that it fixes up, so put some stickers onto the tokens and a few different things like that make it a little bit easier to see what's happening. But the essence of the expansion is it just adds the rest of the companies. And literally, I played this game once and I got, I need the expansion. I need to have the ability to go into all of the companies to make this one work. So look, that is my 2020 top 10 list. If you agree or disagree with any of the games that are on here, please write below. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you know what the games that I've been doing my Gamesplanations of this year and you don't agree and you think one of those games should be on here, please let me know about it. Let everyone know about it. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplayed, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.